Hi everyone, Steve Yulberg here, and I'm excited to be with you for this remotely produced live class for Jam Play. Neon Rainbow singing while you play guitar. Alan Jackson songs. Rainbow, living that honky tonk dream. Want to be able to pick that guitar and sing. That's a challenge because there's a lot going on when we're playing. We got to get the chords right with this hand. We've got to strum or pick or whatever we're doing on this side. And we've got to do the vocal thing, have it be in tune, have the words be the right words, have the tone work. Remember to breathe so that we have everything. Hi, everyone. And that's a challenge, but it's a doable challenge. We're going to break it down into doable steps over this class. And I'll bet a lot of you, because you're here, have interest in this already, probably have already tried it with varying degrees of success, have soared in some occasions, have crashed and burned in some occasions, have kind of gone like this, or you've listened to recordings of yourself and are saying, you know, that's not what I wanted to sound like. That's a common experience for everybody. What we want to do is use our instrument that we're holding as a way of helping us with this, because whether you're standing or sitting with your guitar next to your body, it's vibrating. It's giving you some clues to help you sing. And we want to be able to use that as a way of helping us to find where our voice is. Now, it's also true that a lot of us aren't quite certain where our voice is. We maybe know one or two notes that are really comfortable. They're always there for us. But almost all of us, even if we say we can't carry a tune in the bucket, if we talk and our voice goes up and down when we're talking, we are not tone deaf. We can ask a question and have it go up at the end of the line, and we can have a statement that goes down that shows we're confident at the end of the line. We can do all kinds of vocal inflection and tonal changes when we're talking. We just need to be able to add that to what's going on our guitar. So, if we're ready, Jeff, could you put up our comparison here for us? All right, very good. Now, what we can see here is I've got musical notation. I've got tablature. Half of that might be comfortable for you. The other half might not be comfortable at all. I started out all my musical life by playing guitar. No, I didn't. I started on piano. So we had to learn. We couldn't play anything by ear. We had to learn everything by notes. So I learned the notes. But as you look at this, you can see that these kind of way that we're going to see the notes as we play them on musical notation, but they sound different than what they actually are. And so there's a guitar convention it says right on here. There's a guitar convention. All the notes that you see on your guitar are actually an octave higher than they sound. Now these are, with my beginning guitar class, the fingering exercises that get us to help us get our fingers connected with the guitar. I want to use those to help us get our voice connected with the guitar as well. This E is down here. It's at the bottom part of my voice right now. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B sharp. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B sharp. B sharp is the same as, and then A sharp, B, C, D, D sharp, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, E, D, D. Hopefully you're at home. Hey, thanks for helping to provide that for people asking their questions. I'm using this this tool as a way of figuring out where does my voice actually lay on the guitar. And I'm making mention of the guitar convention because actual pitches sound an octave lower than they look. And if you're a male, you might think that that one E doesn't look low enough for your voice. And you're right, because most males have this voice that goes way below the treble clef, which is what we see here. That's where most women's voices are. And of course, when I'm saying most, this is one of those things that averages back and forth, because there are women with very low voices and men with very high voices that cross over the middle. But in general, the vocal ranges of women and the vocal ranges of men are different from each other. And that has to do with physiology. How thick and how long are your vocal cords? What's the body size? Sometimes you'll see a person with a very large body that has a very high voice, and that looks incongruous to us because we're used to taking big things and making them lower and taking little things and making them higher. Children are little and they have those higher voices. But this low E here is actually the E that's below the bass clef. And if you're a baritone, this is often the very lowest part of your range. If you're a bass, you can often go down below that in the singing ranges. La 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 la. So I encourage you to do this with me right now. Take your guitar, play that note, and see if you can reach it. La. If it's not in your voice, you might be hearing it up here. La 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 la. If you can't reach it, then keep playing and trying to go until your voice matches the pitch that you're looking for. La 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 la. Now I did change when I got to the 4th fret. I went over to the A string, and that's because that's when the magic of the 5th string happens. When I get to the 5th string, I've got the same pitch on the next string over. I could also continue this going straight up the neck if I want a visual for what's happening. But on the tablature in the page that I gave you, and this is something that it's in your practice session, you can print this out and have this for yourself. In fact, I encourage you to do that. But I list 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first set of notes: E, F sharp, F sharp, and G. And then G sharp, A, B, A sharp, B, C, C sharp. And then we're on to D. My encouragement for you is to find where is the first note that fits in your range. Now, I'm going to do this on paper. I've got a highlighter here. Today, the first note that fit my range was that low E, that first one, the very lowest note on the page. So now I could put today's date by that. I'm going to put 4/15. And I'm also going to put, it was 2/15, 4/15/20, 2/15. Because if you're not familiar with your voice, you might want to do this over several days and test it out. So on today at 4/15, the date, at 2:15 in the afternoon, my voice was able to sing this low E. E. Now I had to be pretty relaxed to do it. I'm feeling pretty A. That's a confident note right there. So I'm going to say the open A is my really confident note. And I'm going to use my yellow marker, a yellow highlighter, to mark my confident note. That's the one I can trust. I know that one's going to be there. La, pum, 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 pum. Bum 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 bum. Now I had to go below that to get that one note, bum, and it wobbled a little bit, but that A was good and solid. And in a baritone, my range is typically a baritone. That low A is a good solid note. So I've just made myself aware on my guitar I can find that note, and I'm going to zero in on that every time I pick up my guitar and see, is that still my confident note? And as it changes, I might change what I've written on my page here. And so what I'm trying to do is get myself, as a clue, giving myself a way to find what's going on in my voice with what's on my guitar. I may not read notes, but I know I know the guitar notes because I've been tuning those. So now I can use this as a way of understanding the notes. I can use it as a way of understanding my voice. I can use it as a way of understanding where should I be singing songs. Maybe this is the way that the band I like sang it, but it doesn't fit my voice. Or I maybe could do that in the 70s, but I can't do it in my 70s. Most of us settle into a much more mature voice as we get older, and it's typically lower than it was when we were teenagers or young men or young women. I've always been a man. Glee Club in college, we pretty much liked our voices. We liked the blend we had together. But we had a conductor that had come back out of retirement to lead us my senior year. And one of the things he said when he listened to us, he smiled and he says, "Oh man, I would love to be able to conduct this group in 15 years. And we thought, what do you mean? He says, he said, when your voices get mature and settle into where they're going to really be. And we were just a little bit miffed because we were pretty sure we were all, we were in our 20s. We were pretty sure we were all grown up and had our voices where we wanted them to be. And he was saying there was more yet to come. And what's happened for me is my voice has moved lower, and it's gotten to where I always wanted it to be as when I was a child. I dreamed of singing those really low notes with my dad when we were in church. He would sing like an octave below everybody else. I can't necessarily do that all the time, but I've gotten those notes a lot more than not. And I've found out I've gotten them because I've had my guitar to help me figure out where I am. We're getting some questions that I'm going to come up to as we move on, but I want to continue with this because I found my lowest note, and I'm saying the names of the notes as I go up so I can also learn how to say what they are. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D string, D, D sharp, E, F, same as E sharp, F sharp, G, G, G sharp, A, B, or B flat, A sharp, B, 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 B. The fourth fret on the G string is the same as the open B string. B, C, C sharp, B. You can hear it's going up, it's getting a little tense. It's feeling a little pinched, maybe. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E flat, C, F, G. Now I've moved because our voices have two pieces. We have the chest voice or our full voice. We have our head voice or our falsetto. And we're going to talk about that in a later class, but I moved. And that's what the other thing I want to do is I've marked where I feel here's the lowest note I can reach right now. Here's the one I'm confident about. I want to do the same thing for the higher notes. I'm going to put D, which is the third fret on the B string. So that's what I'm going to do. This is going to be my regular voice. And that gives me, right now, a good solid range that I can count on in my full voice between the A, D, 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 that octave, D, 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 E. I can do the E, but it really feels a little more comfortable if I move into my head voice. E. I can almost get the A, but not really today. So I'm going to say that the G sharp is the top of what I can get with my falsetto. So my orange markers are marking the pitches I can reach. They're not nice. They don't sound good, but I can make a sound at that pitch. The yellow ones are the ones that I'm really confident about right now, and I can have better control of what the tone is. So that means I have an octave from the low A to the A in the middle, and I have almost up to the high A, so almost 2 octaves right now. And this is the thing I'd like you to try to work at discovering for yourself. You may discover I've got a really solid 5-note range. You can sing a lot of music in that. You might be surprised to find you've got an octave and more than an octave that's in your range that's really solid, and you always thought you were a monotone. You always thought you couldn't do that. Well, using your guitar is a way of figuring out that you can. Oh yeah, listen. Here's a YouTube exploration, some homework. Go and listen to some early recordings of your favorite artists, and then listen to them when they mature. Joni Mitchell is an example. Her early recordings, and then her late one, the one that came out with the movie Love Actually. That album that came out at the same time, way different voice for her. Todd Rundgren's another example of that. So as we progress through our life, our voice can change. We can also develop more control or comfort with where our voice is and making use of our voice in all its different places. The question is raised, does my voice hit different notes at different times of the day? Yes, that's exactly right, which is why I put 215 on here for the lowest note I could sing now. When I first wake up in the morning, my voice is very relaxed after being all rested all night. And a lot of times, excuse me, I'm talking and not breathing. Yawning is a good sign of that. When I'm very relaxed in the morning, and a lot of my live Q&A sessions are in that early morning time. It's from 7 to 8 or 7 to 9 my time. I'm in the Pacific Coast. My voice will sing all those low notes a lot better than they will in the middle of the day like now or at night. A lot of us have concert slots that are at night. If we want the really low notes, what are we going to do? We have to learn how to be able to relax with our voice or move the song. That's our choice. Likewise, if we're looking for those high notes, we might have a hard time getting them in the morning when you got to get up and do the radio spot or the TV gig, some news show. They want to talk to you at 6 a.m. and they want you to perform. It's like, we're going to do all of our low songs for the morning gig. And we're going to do our higher songs for the evening gig. I can't remember the bass player's name from the Eagles, who was the high singer for "Take It to the Limit." He got so mad, he would say, with Glenn, because Glenn would say, "We have to. That's our encore. We have to do that." And that would be the very end of the night, and he had to sing "Take It to the Limit, take it." And it was way up there in his voice. He was exhausted, and he said it just drove him crazy that was always their encore. It was always the last thing they sang, and he was always worn out and a little afraid of hurting himself. So when we have figured out where our voice is and do this more than one time, you're going to start seeing, you may discover some clues about why you find certain songs that seem to resonate with you better. Sometimes there's bands that you'll listen to on the radio. You'll have no idea what key they're singing in, but you just jump in and it fits your voice. It fits everything. And there's others you really like the song, but it's never where you can sing. You'll never find dum 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 a love like mine. That low, deep, Luther Vandross, Barry White, those low tones for the sexy voice. When you have a cold, you might have that sexy voice. And then the Bee Gees. You can tell by the way I walk, I'm a woman's man. I don't have no time to talk. They did all their stuff in falsetto, and they figured out what their voices were, and then they played into that. Now, the fact that people responded to it in a different way has something to do with finding the best voice that fits the song you want to sing, and that's something we're going to actually take a look at in week 4. We're going to spend some time with that. Now, there was another question, a couple questions that had to do not with finding your voice, So if you have questions about finding your voice and using the guitar and this tool as a way to do that, go ahead and ask those questions. Let's see. How do I keep track of the count when I'm singing and playing? Aha. That's that thing. I've got two things going on in my mind. I've got to keep the beat going, and I've got to keep what's going on with the song. And let's see. The other question was, I can sing a little, but I forget my place when I'm trying to do both. Okay. So both of these have to do with simplifying what's going on. If I've got a really intricate part, riding on that new river train, riding on that new river train, same old train that brought me here, gonna carry me back home again. Now I'm not going to do all that fancy stuff while I'm singing. I'm going to do that in between. When I'm singing and doing the fancy stuff. So I'm going to try to separate out the hard stuff or the busy stuff with my hands so that I can use this. Riding on that new river train, riding on that new river train, same old train gonna bring me here, gonna carry me back home again. On the railroad, ain't gonna work on the farm, play around the shack till the mail train comes back and roll in my sweet baby's arm. Now I'm adding a couple of things in here, but I'm basically doing a boom chuck rhythm. And the most important part of that rhythm is the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And here is where having measure markers is really helpful. If you just have a long line of notes or a long line of tablature and you don't, or just a chord chart where you can't tell what the notes are or how long to hold the notes and when the chords change, that's a problem because it's really hard to keep your timing then. The limits, here's the relative limits of the different ways we let each other know what's going on in music. And I can see the note. I know what pitch I'm supposed to get. It's got a particular name, and I can see if it's been altered in any way by sharps and flats. But it doesn't tell me on an instrument like a guitar where there's more than one place to get the same pitch. Here's an A, and here's that exact same A. Here's an A, and here's an A, and here's an A. Those are three different places to get the exact same pitch. Tablature lets me know where to play to get that pitch and help me get to the next thing. Tablature by itself won't tell me how long to hold the note. It won't tell me whether to make it staccato or to hold it long. It won't tell me. We've developed some things to help us know if we're supposed to, do some vibrato or bending or slide to get to it, or pull-offs or hammer-ons to it. We've developed those things, but tablature by itself isn't going to tell us all that. What it's also not going to tell us is how long does the note need to last. Chord charts will tell us what the lyrics are, and if the chord symbols are properly placed in the chord chart, that's when the chord needs to change on that syllable of that word. And it's getting better on the internet to find things where things are properly placed. Back in the early days, I would have students bring me in, here, I got this tablature off the internet, I want to play this song. And I'd say, do you know the song? And they'd say, yeah, I know the song. So we'd try to play it. It may not be one I know, but with only the tablature, there wasn't enough information. But then when we downloaded something from the Cars or something like that, and we're playing that track, with the tablature, the knowledge of how the song is supposed to go and the clues of where to play, that gave us enough information. It would also help me know if I'm talking to them, does this fit your voice or not? We can learn the song where it is and we can move it later. Okay, Some examples of low register songs. That's a good question. I was raised in the 70s with hair bands. Well, big hair was more 80s, but there was a lot of falsetto singing at that time. Randy Travis is somebody with a low voice. Let's see. I got friends in low places where the whiskey drowns and the beer chases my blue away. But I'll be okay. Had a bunch on social graces. Garth was doing that on purpose when he wrote that song. He also moved it up because he was singing at night. He may not play it in G, he may play it in A. I got friends in low places where the whiskey drowns and the beer chases my blues away. And I'll be okay. Because he has to go down and get that note that's so low. And he likes it being growly because it really fits the character of the song. Anybody else have example songs that you can think of? I'm thinking, you'll never find, bum, 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 a love like mine. In doo-wop, the bass singer is always singing those low notes. Well, now I'm headed off in that direction. All right. So I don't know if I got to both of those. I got that. Now the question about what do I have to do? I was trying to break up the when we're playing something that's busy and singing, we take turns doing the. That's one way to keep track. Now another way to test that is to stop all the strings and just keep your right hand a metronome for yourself and then sing the song. Sweet home Alabama, I'm coming home to you. All this stuff that's going on in the middle is the part that we struggle with the most, I think. The two hardest things for us to do is to hold the value of the note long enough and to play rests, to sing rests, to take a break and breathe. We're usually afraid we're going to be behind and we jump in too early and we cut off the note value of whatever we're doing when we don't see any counting in the musical notation to give us that clue that I'm supposed to wait this long. Or even if we do see it, we figure I did that note, I'm on to the next thing, off when we're trying to sing. And that's the thing that I try to do to keep the timing straight. Can I just strum along with my favorite song to get the rhythm, the pulse of what they're doing? And as we wind down the road, that's that rhythm thing that I can keep on going. I mean, he's singing way an octave higher than I was singing, and I can't do that. I don't have that voice. Some of you have given these examples of low songs, Johnny Cash songs. Down, 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 ring of fire, down, do, do. No Woman, No Cry, Bob Marley. Yep. All right. Thanks for those. the thing that this does for the pulsing of the song to get us in contact, we're taking out the tone, which is one of the things we're worried about. So we take out the tone so we can get the timing. Then if we take out less of this and just if I only change the chord when the chord needs to change and let it ring, that's a really good way. That's a really good way to play. Now, what I'd like to do is move. This is an example. It's not, Jeff, this is not an example. I thought about this after we got set up. This is a tune that T-Buzz and I wrote in one of the live Q&A songwriting sessions at the end of last month. What would have been the opening day, as he was wishing he could go to the home opener, but he couldn't. So this is a Take Me Out When We Can't Go Out song. You'll see it's in a... This is... I'm sorry, I don't have it for you, Jeff. This is a waltz, so it's pa pa pa. Wish I was in the stadium. Wish I was with the crowd, cheering the 9 on the diamond, making the wave and roaring out loud. But we sit at home all sequestered, reliving the highlights of yore, when our slugger took the pitch and the ump said, "Ball 4." Now that was, all I was doing was strumming when the chord changed, and that actually got me out of, I'm looking at a chord chart that doesn't have notes and doesn't have timing, and so I missed one of my pickup notes. We'll talk about that later. This could be our best year. This could be the team. They could take us all the way. We'd be savoring all of our dreams, but the gates are locked to the patrons. Everyone's staying away. Instead of the roar of 84, there's no opening day. So this is a new enough song that you're seeing me have that problem you've talked about. So I would go through and I'd have to make some slashes on there. I'm going to have this ready for us next week so you can see this as the example. Take me home to the best seat. There's no game to see. Pop some corn, pop open a beer. Replay the memories while sitting right here. No reason to venture outside. Everything's closed, you see. No need to worry as long as we have TP. So this one is a waltz. It's the big two different kinds of music that tend to show up. There's the 4/4 driving things that's rock and reggae and blues and country, folk. There's a lot of that. But then there's these waltz tunes, and boiling it down to what is the pulse is going to be the thing that's going to help you sing the best. And often the name of whatever you're doing on the pulse is the name of the chord. So I'm using that as my wish I was in the stadium, wish I was with the crowd, cheering the 9 on the diamond, making the wave and roaring out loud. So I'm using those notes that I'm keeping my pulse with that are parts of the chord as a way of helping me find the notes I want to sing in the song. So I know that because I did this to find out where my voice was. I found out that the song fits within most of those notes that I could get. And as I play that note, that gives me my note for the song. Here's another example. Sean Mullins has a naturally deep voice, and when he sings Lullaby, you can hear his low register. Now, here's your homework. I want you to do this over the next week. I want you to take this on different days. You can use different colors. You could use the same color, but use a different marker to tell what day it was. And in 7 days, as you test your voice using your guitar to see where is it today, where is it tomorrow, you'll get a good sense of what are the solid notes and the vocal range you have. If you put the time of day that you're on here, you'll kind of know how it moves through the day as well, which will be useful information for you to have. Excuse me. And it'll help you as we start talking about finding the place in your voice for the song to sing the best. Good question. When I'm singing with the guitar, I keep having to look down. We tend to do two things. We look at our hands, which gives us this neck ache, or we're looking at words, and we're terrified of the people. If there's anybody else out there, it's terrifying to see those people. So there's a couple of things that you can do for that. And I'd say this for anybody learning to play guitar. Find a mirror and play in front of the mirror. Learn to read what the mirror is doing with your hand so you don't have to do this and you're not tipping your guitar to see your hand better. The fingers are not going to leave your hands. They don't always do what you want them to. I get that. But you can get used to get it. You can help them get to where they want to go and give yourself some feedback. Now, I don't know if you know this, in the live Q&A window, when you go there, you have the option to turn on your camera and record something. And it's not just when you're in the room. You can do a little recording for yourself. That's a way for you to test and see yourself as a recorded kind of way. Because sometimes when you're doing it and watching yourself doing it, there's too much information and you can't keep track of everything. It's like Danger Will Robinson. But if you can record yourself recorded, that can be very difficult, but it can be very instructive also. So give yourself, don't be harsh on yourself. Just say, okay, this is what it is. Now, earlier, I also said that everyone who hears their voice recorded say, I don't sound like that. And this is true. You don't sound like that to you. Because every one of us has this resonating chamber. We have this head. We have all these sinus cavities in our head that are vibrating every time we speak, every time we sing. And we're getting bone vibrations through our skull that are going to our ear as a piece of the data that we get when we sing. We're also using our chest cavity, which has got all this air in here. La. We have all this air that is being used. It's also part of the resonance that's in your voice. And so when you listen to a recording of you, you're only hearing what happens out in the air. You're not hearing all the stuff that happens here that you're used to hearing all the time. And so you're right, it doesn't sound like you, the way you know you, but it does sound like the way you sound out in the world. And there's a big disconnect. I've never met anybody who said, oh, this matches, this has congruence right off the bat. There was always a, wait a second, that's me? That doesn't feel like, I'm not feeling it. And it's like having someone else play your guitar on the other side of the room and you listen to the tone. You hold the guitar, cradle it to your chest and play it, and you feel the vibrations. It's a different instrument when you're holding it than when it's over there. So the two clues or ways to help develop a better habit than always looking is play in front of a mirror, pray in front of a camera, pray in front of the mirror and then play, play in front of a mirror and play in front of a camera so that you can then look at your recording of yourself. Now we also have, these devices. You can record yourself on your phone. You don't have to share it with anybody else. You can just keep it for yourself. You can share it if you're happy with it, but don't feel like you have to. Because if you feel like you have to share it, that's the thing that makes people freeze up. A live performance is something that just comes and goes. When you know that this is going to be recorded, there's another little, critical thing going on in the back of your brain saying, "But why do you think you can do this? You missed that. You have a running commentary telling you what you're doing wrong the whole time." And you can't get rid of it, but you can turn down the volume on that. Here's another question. How do you approach songs where the guitar and the vocal melody don't match at all? And I'm trying to think. There's some jazz tunes where I'm thinking of that particularly, where the chord that's being played, the melody note that's being sung is not part of the chord at all. And I almost always have trouble finding that when I get to the bridge, and I'm trying to remember which song is it. Is it Take the A Train, or is it Satin Doll? And for those, I practice the interval. It gets me there. And then I practice it without the chord. I practice it with the chord so that I can get used to what that is. Now, I have a story. When I was in the Glee Club, we sang this very non-tonally centered arrangement of a piece. It was a piece of scripture. We sang it on Good Friday when we were on tour at this church in Ohio. And what happened, cries, this quartet, male quartet, all these different da. It's kind of like the interval of Jaws, da. These are going on all over the place. And the baritone saying, even death on a, and they'd stop, and the second tenors, which was my section, have to go cross. It was a major seventh interval. It was like they stopped here. Da. We had to come up with that note. And every time we tried to do it, every time we thought about the note, we'd miss it. Every time. The director of the Glee Club said, trust it. It's going to be there. He'd have us work on the interval. And then he said, don't think, just sing. The first thing you think of, cross. And we would get it. And it was like they threw it to us and we caught it when it came down. So it is possible to memorize the pitches or the intervals you need to sing the things where the what's going on in the accompaniment does not seem to match that. Oh, okay. You weren't talking tonally. Okay. Do you have an example of that? Because I'm not getting an example of that I can demonstrate right now. Cause every little thing gonna be alright. Don't you worry about a thing. Cause every little thing gonna be alright. So, in this example, don't you worry, woke up this morning. Oh, I switched over into that song. 'Cause every little thing gonna be alright. Don't you worry about a thing. So, I know that this reggae thing is going to be on the 2 and the 4. Cha, 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 cha. So part of what I do is move my body to keep that big piece. So that's a rhythmic example of what can happen. And the truth is, we are capable of carrying on different rhythmic things at the same time. Let me back up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. This hand is doing the 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the big pulse. This one's doing twice as fast. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, it could also be that this is 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, which is the diminution of the beat. It's making it micro beat. Here's the pulse. But in my body, I was keeping two different things happening at the same time. They relate to each other, but they aren't doing the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm doing triplets with the right hand while this hand is doing 1, 2, 3, 4. Triplet, 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 triplet. Learning to keep one hand or your foot, something to do the steady part of the beat, or maybe it's with your body like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. These are things you can practice without your guitar if you're trying to do two different rhythmic things at the same time. If you can see how they fit together, does one layer upon the other? Is there a pulse that's at the bottom of it that's holding steady that you can keep with one part of your body while the other part does the other part? Those will be some little tricks that'll get you in that direction. The verse parts of AC/DC's Back in Black example. Yeah, okay, the rhythm is very different than what's going on in the accompaniment. And there are people, like Glenn Campbell was somebody, when he played with the Beach Boys, he played bass, but he sang the high tenor part. I don't know how he did that. There are people who do it, which is, I mean, you got dom, 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 whatever's going on down here, singing way different from what he was doing down here. So there are people who develop these skills. They might have a propensity to it, but they also develop the skills to be able to do it. I did see there was an earlier question. This is an auto harp. Like Mother Maybelle Carter would play. Another way I can feel this all going through me. And I got it next to my head so I can feel the vibrations coming through my skull. Nice. All right. Well, we have some homework. One piece of homework is I want you to identify a couple of songs that you want to sing, that you like. You may already do these, but you want to get better at them. Something that's up-tempo and something that's slower. A ballad of some kind, a lullaby, something that's just not as rocking. But then, so one of those and something that's got some drive to it, some forward motion, so that you're having a rhythmic challenge. The lullaby, the Take Me Out to the Ball Game could almost be the lullaby kind of thing because it's so laid back and gentle. And I'm going to make sure that you have that available for you next week. I'm going to put some of my markings on it so you can see what this will be an example. We'll do some comparisons of timing with that. And then pick these two, and I'd like you to record a bass line of you doing something with that song. It may be a chorus, it may be one time through, it may be the whole song. This is not something you need to share with me. I would gladly look at it if you'd want to share it with me. But I don't need to see it. This is for you. This is to get a bass line, a beginning. Here's where I started. Because what often happens is we're in this progress and we're slogging through and our feet are covered with mud. We're itchy. We're tired. We got sweat running down our back. And we look up and the mountain is still so tall. but we're not standing at the trailhead anymore. We need to be able to turn around and look sometimes and see that's where we started. We're this far on the journey. And having a baseline is being able to say, well, on that day, this is what it sounded like. This is what I did. And then when you later on do the same thing, you as the outside observer can be listening to yourself and change and see how you're doing. Learn to develop the ability to give yourself constructive criticism. Here's a question. Have I ever known anyone who started playing and singing and made it to a professional level after the age 40? I don't know if I know anyone who didn't do anything with music beforehand who started after age 40 and had it happen. I know several people who consider themselves to be late bloomers, meaning they didn't follow the musical muse early in their life. They did it later in their life. And, what is the question about what is professional is, are you paid for your gigs? That would be a level of what is professional. Are you respected by your peers? Are you able to do the things you want to do? There's so many different levels of qualifiers for the word professional for me to know exactly how to answer that. I do have friends who make their living by music who did not do that before, who did other things, or who have day jobs that pay for their living while they do this as something they love. And I don't know if they would call it professional, but they are getting paid for the work they do. They may not see themselves as professional, and someone else might look at it and say, wow, you're a real pro. How about singing and playing bass? It's more difficult for me, is the question. The thing that I find interesting with bass is because often you're playing a lot less. You're playing a very rhythmic piece. It's often very predictable, depending on the style of music you're into. Maybe if you're playing da 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 da, maybe you have to do that. And if you're singing high notes that just hold still, I'm not singing any notes that I played, but I'm singing a note that can hold still while I play all this stuff. That's not necessarily a hard thing to do. You just kind of set up the one, you do this, I'm going to go over and do this, and then keep on doing it. And we're going to talk next class about the vocal support, the breath support that makes singing possible and lets you able to do things like that. And we're going to talk about posture for singing too, which is what I'm not doing now. I'm being a bad example for you. Sorry. So, just a reminder, your homework. Find where your voice is and track it through the week. If you can get 7 days, that'd be perfect. If you can get 5 days, that's really good. But this is for you to find your voice. Now, at the bottom of the page, we have the same thing that's at the top, but it's all using flat names. You might be more familiar with the flat names of some notes than the others. Their pitches are exactly the same. They're just going by their different names. It's like some of us, I'm Steve or Steven. I was Steven when I got in trouble, and I'm Steven when I signed my name. But, most of the time people call me Steve or Teacher Steve or Mr. Steve, or in college I was called E because I lived with a guy named Steve and he was R. His last name started with an R, mine with an E. So we were easy to get a hold of. Hey E, hey R. So find that and pick 2 songs. I'm showing you 4. Pick 2 songs, a fast one and a slow one, an up-tempo, a ballad, or a lullaby or something. And do your best to play that. These are ones you like and do, and record it. And save that recording. We're going to refer to it later. But keep that and label it with today's date. You could call it baseline recording. You can call it number one, whatever, just so you know how to differentiate, because you're going to do the same thing later after you've had a chance to work on the things we're going to work on here. Well, it's been really good being with you today. I hope you find value in this class. I know that when I sing, it feels like I'm giving myself a hug. All these muscles, we're going to talk about the breathing part next time. All this stuff is going on. And so sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself when you're not feeling good is to sing, because you are giving yourself a hug. You're exercising. You're working through whatever it is you're feeling. You're connecting memories. And we want you to have the skills to be able to do that, so you can give yourself that gift. Well, thanks. We'll see you next time.